Derek Carr, fractured hand. And what does it mean for the Saints moving forward? Ladies and gentlemen, today the greatest fears were realized. So in the game against the Giants on the final drive, the final drive for Derek Carr, there was a play where Kubiak decides to call some ridiculous read option situation where Carr ends up running. Carr tries to get the first down, goes aerial. I ain't talking Little Mermaid. He goes vertical, comes down crazy. I'm not sure what Carr was doing. Comes down on his hand. Not only was he sent to concussion protocol, but the fear was he fractured his hand. So Ian Rappaport tweets out that Derek Carr is feared to have suffered a fracture in his left non-throwing hand, sources tell him and Tom Pelissaro. Then he says, this is today, Saints quarterback Derek Carr did in fact suffer a significant fracture in his non-throwing hand. He's expected to miss several weeks based on where we are in the season. This is potentially season ending. So this is what we said during the game / after the game, that, if he breaks his hand and he has a concussion, then more than likely the season's over. Then he says the Saints may not place Carr on IR, keeping the window of opportunity open, but out the next few games or a few weeks regardless. I would assume the reason is just in case, by some insane chance, that if the Saints win the next couple of games, then they want Carr to be available to play. Whereas if you put him on the IR, he's wiped out for 4 games. So I would assume that's why that designation is a thing. But then they say interim coach Darren Rizzi confirms Carr won't be on the place on IR. All right. Not giving up hope of him playing sooner rather than later. No doubt Carr will be pushing to go. And then there's another tweet, I'll have to find it, where Rizzi talks about Carr may play regardless of practice, which makes it sound like he could play this weekend. There's no way he plays this weekend. I mean, I'm not sure what Rizzi's talking about there, but just throwing that out there for some kind of context of what's going on, I would assume, if I was a betting man, that Derek Carr's out for the season. Again, the IR thing makes sense from a standpoint of, if it's a situation where you win a game at the end of the year and you make the playoffs, yeah, you want Carr to play. But the idea that he could possibly play this week or next week seems insane, unless he's going to play with some Patrick Willis club on his hand. I mean, there's no way, So, but we're gonna the backdrop, New Orleans football. We're gonna talk about this injury and what it means for the Saints in the future, and what it might mean for Carr as well. We got the triple threat, Mike, in studio. We got Nicholas from New York. He was up there for the Giants game. My God, he had to sit there at the stadium and watch that.
I'm Nick Underhill out here at MetLife Stadium following today's Saints win. I guess they won. It feels like they won. They won.
So this was published 7 hours ago, which would have put it in the same time frame as Rappaport's tweet, but filmed after the game. So they're not going to. So they're going to be talking in a lot of what ifs, and so we'll try and clear that up and just kind of if they're talking about a what if, it'll probably be confirmed through the report from Rappaport.
It doesn't feel like they won, but they definitely won the game over the Giants. And you are joining us for another episode of New Orleans Stop Football, presented by PJ's Coffee. Mike and Brandon are coming to you from our studio up there on Betts, next door to my guy Matt Powers, state-of-the-art Ford dealership. Make sure you go there, check them out, buy yourself a new car for this holiday season. Saints won the game, guys, but Derek Carr left the game with an injury. B, what you got for us?
You won, but at what cost? Let's hop off the top rope with our first segment presented by Schaber Insurance, the Earhart Agency. What does Derek Carr's hand injury mean for the Saints in their 14-11 win against the New York Giants?
So, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I mean, it pretty much signals that not only is the season over, but it pretty much signals, I would think, the Rizzi experience is over, the Kubiak experience is over. I would think they're going to try and find a way out of Carr's contract now. And the reason I say all that, the only hope Kubiak and Rizzi and all of them had was a strong finish to the end of the year, not necessarily like a playoff berth or not necessarily a division win, but just look good, look cohesive, look like there's something to build there. Show us something. Give Loomis or whoever's making the decisions, give them something to argue and say, you know what? I don't know. We look pretty good at the end there. Like maybe there is something. Without Carr, the drop to Haener or Rattler, and I would think it's going to be Haener. I don't think they're going to throw Rattler back out there as bad as that was. But the drop to Haener is just so significant. I mean, you're talking at a certain point, we've said this a million times, but you got to put your hands up and say, well, unless you're Derek Carr, then you can't put your hands up. But you got to put your hands up and say, we don't have Marshawn Lattimore on the team. We don't have Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. We don't have Derek Carr. At a certain point, you got to just kind of say, all right, I mean, this is just an awful team. And if you're just an awful team and you're rolling into, you're telling me that a team that just went to New York and struggled against the Giants and Drew Lock, lucky to get out of there with a win, all of a sudden now with Jake Haener, we're supposed to be facing the Commanders, the Raiders or whatever, the Packers in prime time at Green Bay, the Buccaneers on the road. At a certain point, it's just not going to be good. And if you go back to the Spencer Rattler starts, I know it's not the same defenses we're facing, but I would expect something pretty similar to that kind of output. Like I would expect us to just not be able to do anything, just like we did in those games, in the Rattler games, where there was just nothing we could really do. I mean, at the end of the day, it was Spencer Rattler throwing to Mason Tipton and Bub Means, and at the end of the day, it's going to be, really think about this Commanders game. You're going to have Jake Haener throwing to MVS. More than likely, MVS is going to be covered by Marshawn Lattimore. Oh, and the defense is facing Jaden Daniels. That's probably not a recipe for success. And you get a couple of those blowout losses like we had against the Broncos, the Buccaneers. You get a couple of those. This Rizzi thing, this Kubiak thing, there is going to be no argument of bringing them back. There's no way you can go through blowout against the Commanders, blowout against the Packers, blowout against the Bucks, some combination of that, maybe a win against the Raiders. There's no way you can go through that and then be like, you know what? Maybe we should bring all these guys back. And then if you're talking about getting a new coach in here, more than likely that coach is going to bring in their own staff on both sides of the ball. So you'll have a new head coach, new DC, new OC. More than likely, that coach/staff is not going to want to inherit a 34, 35-year-old, whatever at the time, Derek Carr, coming off of injuries with an enormous cap. Now, I know there's a medical clause in the contract. So a lot of this is speculation, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of this is just who the hell knows. A lot of this is, I don't have the contract in front of me. I don't have the legalese, as they say. But I guarantee you the New Orleans Saints are going to be looking at that fine print and figuring out what they got to do. And Derek Carr and his team will be doing the exact same thing. So that's all got to be factored in. It's just all this does is eliminate the what ifs, and it pushes us way closer to that, if you want to call it a full rebuild or whatever.
Yeah. So first of all, I've been told that the fear is that he suffered a fracture in that hand. And obviously that's a concerning injury, especially at this point in the season. There's only 4 weeks to go. Quarterback needs both hands. It's the offhand. So maybe there's a way to find a way. But from what I'm gathering right now, and again, they have to do more tests. They have to figure out what's going on. But from what I've heard initially is that there is some, feeling that maybe he's not going to be able to play beginning next week against the Commanders. And my expectation then would be that Jake Haener would be the starting quarterback for the Saints at that point. So, I think it means a lot. I think it kind of kills their hopes of, if he's out. It's unreasonable, but internally they still believe they can be a playoff team. I think it would kill their hopes of being able to make the playoffs. Agreed. I just don't think that, it's a positive development if your eye is still on having week-to-week success against these teams and, seeing Darren Rizzi go on this run and all that stuff. I think taking Carr out of that would kill it.
Yeah. Good question, Nick. Is that you're reporting that your anticipation that it's going to be Carr or Haener, or just gut instinct because of the Rattler experiment?
I think it's going to be Haener. I think it should be Haener. I think you gave Rattler the opportunity. You might as well give Haener a similar opportunity. If Rattler would have lit it up in those 3 games, if he would have looked really good, then yeah, you may be rolling back out there. But he didn't look really good. He looked awful. So, and yeah, you could argue like, well, we have a better offensive line now. I wouldn't worry about any of that stuff. I would say, you know what, we gave Rattler a look. We're in this like hyper, this fast track to next season anyways. Let's give Haener the same opportunity, fair and balanced, and then we'll kind of make a decision moving forward. But I would be shocked if it's not Jake Haener.
Falling short earlier this year.
My anticipation as of this moment, is that it would be Jake Haener.
Yeah, but
my anticipation.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was curious if you were making an educated guess or not, because this team's so hard to predict. I also think it would be Haener, but I always we hadn't talked about it before we went on the air, so I was curious if you'd heard anything yet. It's such an interesting thing that they went with Rattler last time, then they went back to Haener as the backup quarterback. I think it's Haener's turn in the rotation. Rattler kind of fizzled, so I think whether they've made that decision or not, I think Haener gets a chance to they need to see, is he going to struggle just as much as Rattler did, or does he have more than he does or not? But either way, Rattler or Haener, I would not predict the Saints to beat the Commanders. I would not predict the Saints to go into Green Bay and beat the Packers. No. And if this team,
like even with Carr, you don't predict the Saints to beat the Commanders or the Packers. The whole thing is that you need those games to see what this team can do. Like if Carr is around and the offense looks good against the Commanders and you lose in a shootout, then you can say like, look, like we're in there. We got some stuff happening. We're firing, If we lose in a shootout to the Packers or a close game or whatever, you can say, look, there's something here. Like these are really good teams. These are playoff teams. But without those examples and with more than likely blowouts, like that's going to be the death knell to any conversation about Rizzi or Kubiak.
Falls to 5-10. We certainly are not talking about any mathematical playoff hopes at that point. So, this was a hideous win today, and I don't know that we could have come on here and talked with any optimism anyway.
Yeah.
But if they still had Derek Carr, and they were able to go and beat the Commanders, we would be talking about a team that's still in playoff contention.
Yeah, you go beat the Commanders, absolutely. Then you are in playoff contention. But like we talked about after the Giants game, where it's like, what do you look forward to? Well, what you were looking forward to was how does this offense operate? How does Kubiak operate? How does the team look? Like how's the offensive line look? You're evaluating players, you're evaluating coaches, and that is now not really a thing. It's not really. You can't evaluate this offense with Jake Haener as the quarterback. You can't evaluate. So, and that's kind of unfair to like Kubiak and Rizzi and Carr, even to an extent. Like it's kind of unfair, but at the end of the day, the front office aren't fans. All right, the front office, it's a business. So you got to think about this from a business standpoint, a front office standpoint, and I think all this would do if I was Loomis is expedite my search of like who the external candidates are, and then as fast as I can when the season's over, I'm interviewing everybody, anyone and everyone.
Taking Derek Carr out of the equation, combined with kind of how ugly this game was before they won it, really makes that seem like a foolhardy conversation right now.
I mean, look, if you still have Derek Carr next week, I don't think you can beat the Commanders because the way you were playing today, when he was in there, it wasn't good. It wasn't like, oh, well,
he's not wrong.
They're handedly beating the Giants. You're struggling to get 14 points. Yeah. So I don't think it was a guaranteed thing that they were beating the Washington Commanders next week.
Hell no.
Even though it's a home game, but I don't know, like even the Marshawn revenge game, like it wasn't, I don't think it was even happening next week. By the way that they were showing today that they are playing in that low realm of, you had a fully healthy offensive line and you still weren't able to get things all the way going. Now, I understand rust
you're terrible.
Trying to get things going in
that
different
wasn't
places.
Rust. That was gross.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's no, like that. that's something that when people are like, oh, the offensive line is rusty. No, they were not. That is absolutely not what that was. That was a horrible performance.
Well, you said it. Yuck.
That was
gross.
full-on corrosion.
Those are words that you use throughout analyzing the game. Yuck, gross, all that kind of stuff, because that's what it was. Like, I understand you're missing Taysom Hill now, but you've done that already. So I feel like today's game didn't show emphatically that, if Derek Carr plays, then they're going to beat Washington.
No,
I still don't think that was going to happen.
Yeah. So just to kind of go back to that, though. Yeah, my anticipation is that it would be Jake Haener. Now, like, my gut feeling, if you're asking me what my gut feeling was, I would probably say Jake Haener too, just because you're talking about people now at this point. This, again, and I've made this point on other things, this isn't a staff that is trying to look at the future at all.
Yeah, this is 100%. This is a staff that is coaching for their jobs, which, again, is why tanking is not a thing. Because if you tell Rizzi, tank, if you tell Klint Kubiak, tank, then you might as well tell them, update your LinkedIn profile. Because they're not going to be here for the top 10 quarterback. They're not going to be here for this next roster. So, yeah, this staff is not looking at the future. They're trying to win these games. They're trying to put something together.
They're trying to figure out how they're going to win a game right now. And I think they probably feel like Jake Haener is a little bit of a better option to do it. I don't like either one. I don't like either one of them if you have to go out there and beat the Commanders or Packers.
Yeah, hell no. They're both C-, D-, F- backup quarterbacks. They both suck. You know, like, they might be good down the road, but right now they're terrible. So, yeah, I mean, like, it's one of those things where I know we have to go try and beat the Commanders. But when you are in the situation the Saints are in, I mean, Commanders coming off of a bye, you know, you're already injured. Now you're even more injured. It's just, you struggle against mobile quarterbacks. Like, you got one of the most mobile quarterbacks. You struggle against teams that throw the ball down the field. You are about to get every single bit of that. It's tough.
I don't like Carr with a broken hand if you got to beat the Commanders or Packers. If there's a way to roll him out there and you know, throw enough tape on that thing and shoot it up or whatever you got to do to get him out there. Especially, I don't know if you could even do that in Green Bay. Like, it feels like you're asking for a fumble to happen. It just kind of feels like it's cooked a little bit right now in terms of what you're doing going forward. And that stinks, because right now Rizzi is 3-1.
Yeah.
You know, you should feel okay about this game in some respect. You grinded out an ugly win. Those happen in a season. You know, you don't feel good about it. You barely beat the Giants, who are barely, you know, not even barely. I think they're openly kind of not making their best effort to win games. You don't cut your starting quarterback and go to.
Yeah, they're openly in the Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward sweepstakes. Like, they're openly in the, hey, we need a top 3 pick.
Go to Drew Lock if you're making your best effort, you know, just to win games at the priority of winning those games. So they're beyond that. You barely beat them. But there are games every year where people fall into a trap, and it's better to have an ugly win instead of falling into the trap. But
yeah,
there's nothing really to take from it. I mean, that's just a pale on the whole thing. And, you know, let's talk about how it happened. I mean, like, I'm sorry, and I know he got hurt, and I don't want to come off as crude or insensitive or anything at all like that, but that was not a smart play. Like, that was crazy. I don't.
Yeah, the Carr thing was nuts. Like, what? I know you're in the heat of the moment, and you're trying to do something and trying to make something happen, and, you know, whatever. But yeah, what in the world? Like, just an insane decision. Crazy decision in that spot. Again, not blaming him for the injury. It is what it is. He's just trying to play hard, trying to win, whatever. But damn,
like, credit to him for being a warrior, going for it or whatever. But, like, that was not a well calculated moment, in my opinion.
You admire the spirit behind it, and Carr has been talking all year about how he wants to be more of a running quarterback, and Taysom went down, and he wants to lift some of that mantle and take it up himself. So maybe you even admire the run. I mean, it felt like we didn't even ask in the wake of the game if it was a designed run. It felt like it was a designed run for him. Yeah. I don't know if he had an option to hand it to Alvin or run based on what he saw. So the running itself was a little dangerous, but the leap obviously was too much. Go ahead and live to fight another down on that one. That's how Jaden Daniels should play next week when he comes into town with Washington. Get out of bounds instead of fighting for those extra 3 yards. But yeah, you admire you admire what was behind it, but you've got to draw the line between going up in the air and putting the rest of your season at risk, which is obviously exactly what happened.
Yeah, I mean, you just step out of bounds, like just step out of bounds real quick and live to fight another down, like you said. I mean, that's just not that's not what you can do. You can't risk it. You're too important to the team. Their odds of winning games are significantly altered, no matter what. But especially if he's not playing. If he's not playing, it's over.
We've seen it this year.
Yeah, and look, here's the thing: they're never going to tank. They will never ever tank, and that's fine and that's great. But guess
yeah, tanking is not a thing, but we are now organically tanking. Like, the hand has been dealt. There's not much else you can do. If Jake Haener is starting and MVS is your number one, then you are tanking. Like, you are a horrible team. We're not tanking on purpose, but because of the circumstances, we're more than likely about to go 1-3. So, and the Raiders is certainly not guaranteed. So, does, like I just said, Rizzi is coaching for his job, Kubiak's coaching for his job, and they're staring 0-4 down, right? Like 3-1 so far with Rizzi has been awesome, but you're staring down 0-4, and 3 of those games could be real ugly.
Guess what? Like, if this guy's out, the decision to tank is basically taken out of your hands. So
yeah, exactly.
It's just gonna happen. Like, you're gonna try your hardest and you're gonna lose. So maybe if he misses time, I mean, it's the draft watch is on at that point.
Hell,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't think you can do enough to make the playoffs, and at that point, like, I don't know. Like, I know you don't make decisions to rush people back if he's not on the field. I mean, again, I don't think you're ever outwardly tanking, but at some point you have to start making. Somebody somewhere has to make some decisions for the longevity of this team. I mean, at a certain point, when you have everyone you can't pull off or whatever, but like if you brought back, let's just say, for instance, like Chris Olave when Derek Carr's not out.
Why would you do that? Yeah, why would you bring Olave back, force him to play with Jake Haener slinging it, and you're a 5-win team? Like, yeah, it's not going to happen. But same with Carr, where now Carr's a little different because Carr may be trying to play for, like his own future. So it's a little bit different. But same with Carr, where it's like, yeah, wrap his hand up, tape it up, shoot it up, put a cast on it, put the club on it. Like, all for what? To go up to Green Bay, to go in Green Bay in prime time
out there. That's crazy. I mean, at this point, anyone that's hurt, like somebody above the coaching staff, if this is the reality and, you go out there and you drop the next 2 games or whatever, at some point, somebody has to say, all right, like, this is about the long-term health of the franchise. This is over. Let's just back off it a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to do anything outwardly obvious. You don't have to do anything that even necessarily the players see. But look, you already put a healthy guy on IR this season. Like, you can do little things that aren't necessarily insane and call it roster management.
They're not going to do that right now. But, they're 2 losses, 1 loss, 2 loss, whatever, away from even being mathematically eliminated. So I would hope maybe they would do something different for the last couple weeks. And maybe that would lead to seeing all these draft picks that keep being inactive every week. Maybe it'll lead to seeing Haener get the full rest of the slate, or Rattler getting back in there for the last 2 games or something. I would hope once they're mathematically eliminated that changes, but maybe even then it doesn't. But without question, they're going to go into next week's game trying to win. And I even think there is a world where we could be sitting here in these seats right now saying, even if we only partly believed it, well, now that the offensive line is healthy, maybe the Saints could game plan around their run game and not ask Haener to do too much. We can't have that conversation today.
Cannot.
Because
yeah, what the hell are you talking about? We just ran for 2.9 yards a carry against the Giants. Game plan around the running game. I don't know if y'all realize this. Drew Lock led the game in rushing. He had the most rushing yards in the entire game. Drew effing Lock. Okay, so game plan around the running game, that ain't going to work. And how the hell are you going to stop Jaden Daniels? How the hell are you going to stop Jordan Love? How the hell are you going to stop Josh Jacobs? The running game doesn't matter when you can't stop the other side of the ball. So, yeah, I mean, nah.
because they, that was the most disappointing aspect of the game today. So I don't feel like they can go and build a game plan around this offensive line in this run game next week.
Absolutely not.
And ask Haener to not have to do much.
Yeah, we'll get in more of the run game stuff a little bit later in the show. But just to wrap up a loose end from this week, when Kubiak and Rizzi were talking about, oh, yeah, players been coming up and saying, I can fill in this Taysom role. I can do this. I can do that. If it was Derek Carr,
it was. I know it was.
You should have said
I know it was Derek Carr when they were saying that. People have been coming up and campaigning for it. My first thought was, I bet Derek Carr has been campaigning for it.
Dude,
yeah, none of that's happened.
It was a crazy play. Like, why is he doing that? I don't.
What I don't understand about the play is that you're in like clock kill. You're trying to kill the game off. So if that is the play, like him running to the sideline is dangerous enough. Like you don't even I understand what they're saying about step out of bounds and all that stuff. Like yeah, but you don't even want to have a play where that could be the final outcome because you don't want that to happen. You don't want to run it. Like let's just take the play out. Pretend like it was a toss to Alvin Kamara and he runs out of bounds. That would be a disaster. People would be looking around like, what the hell did we just do? Run the ball up the middle. Like we're trying to kill clock. We're trying to get some yards, trying to get a first down here. Running out of bounds, incomplete passes, all that is free timeouts for the Giants. So even like if it was a designed run, even if he was supposed to just step out, even that alone is a huge question mark.
I understand it's like an ultimate winner play, but you gotta
can't be.
It's like he was like yelling out Taysom as he did it though. Like it's no, like don't do that. Don't do that. Like you don't. I respect it. I respect the competitive.
Yeah, sure. I respect in the moment. We've seen other quarterbacks and players do stuff like that, but I respect it. But even beyond Carr, like the ball should not have been in his hand. The play call should not have been made.
Yes, but it's just like, no, man. Like you are the guy that cannot be doing this. Like you have to live to fight another down. Like it can't be Valdez-Scantling, Cedric Wilson, Dante Pettis, Kevin Austin Jr. in a backup quarterback.
Yeah,
like
Jesus.
It just cannot be that. And that's what it is now. As far as like game planning around them or whatever, like no, I don't see.
Yeah, wake up, Peter
I won't
Pan.
be having that conversation until it's shown to me. I don't think they can win a game without the starting quarterback.
No, but when Brandon said that, when Rizzi was saying that, or Kubiak was saying that, players have been campaigning, I was actually thinking, I guarantee you Derek Carr has been campaigning for it. But the irony of having this discussion, obviously he's the quarterback and he's not as athletic as leaping in the air or whatever he thought was going to happen on that play. But I mean, the irony of their season ended on Mark Ingram taking a step out of bounds 1 yard too early and them not being able to convert it 2 years ago. He was trying.
Well, the Ingram thing was crazy too because the Ingram thing, he had torn MCL and he was in the game on third down and catching passes when Alvin Kamara should have been in there. We covered that on this channel. I went nuts. That was another insane personnel decision from Carmichael and Dennis Allen. But yeah, I mean, at this point now, ladies and gentlemen, like we're going to play out these 4 games. We'll see. We'll see how bad it gets. Maybe Haener pulls a Brock Purdy. I doubt it. Beyond that, it's draft position. Beyond that, it's new coaches. Beyond that, it's new staff. Beyond that, it's new everything. Like, and as far as the Carr thing, I want to reiterate this. Like, Carr it's been a really bad couple of years, just as far as like the Saints. I mean, I know Carr has been good when he has played this year, but it's just been a rash of injuries, whether it was the 2 halves he missed last year or the injury this year, and then just the results and all that stuff. It's not Carr's fault, but I guarantee you the driving force right now with the Derek Carr thing is whatever the injury clause is in the contract and whatever coach they bring in, how they feel about Carr. If you're bringing in a whoever, I'm just going to throw a name out there. I don't think this guy is going to come to New Orleans. But if you're bringing in Ben Johnson and Ben Johnson wants to draft a quarterback, you think you're going to say, no, man, we got this 34-year-old quarterback? What about that? Like, that's not going to happen. So now, again, with all the moving pieces, with all the change, with all the new coaches, new staff, new whatever, the roster turnover and whatnot, they may be in a situation where they can't get rid of Carr and they can't offload Carr and the incoming coach will have to deal with that for a year. I don't know. That's a conversation for the contract, but everything's in flux right now. Every single thing is in flux. I would assume if I was a betting man, Saints are about to go 0-4. 1-3 at the best. It's going to be some ugly games against Green Bay and Washington. You're going to see Rizzi will be gone, Kubiak will be gone, the whole offensive staff and the whole defensive staff will be gone. You'll see a huge roster turnover, and we'll be covering it all. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.